Doug, can you talk again?
Yes, can you hear me?
Oh, yes, we can now. Thank you.
Okay, thanks.
Hi, Jennifer. You're on mute.
Good afternoon.
Hi. Hi, Terry.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'd like to call to order the regular meeting of the Council of the Corporation of the Municipality of Kincardine at 5 o'clock on March 27, 2024 in the council chambers at the Municipal Administration Center. Roll call this evening, Deputy Mayor Clark.
Present.
Councillor Blackwell.
Present.
Councillor Kavanaugh.
Present.
Councillor Hinchberger.
Present.
Councillor Kennedy.
Present.
Councillor Prenger.
Present.
Councillor Steinhoff Gray. Councillor Stewart.
Present.
And I'd also like to acknowledge the many staff members and lonely journalist who's sitting here in the public gallery. So excellent. We begin by acknowledging that we are meeting on the traditional lands and treaty territory of the Saugeen Ojibwe Nation, which includes the Chippewas of Nawash Unceded First Nation and the Chippewas of Saugeen First Nation, whose ancestors were the earliest to inhabit, care for, and live on this land. We recognize and appreciate the contributions that Indigenous peoples have made as they cared for and shaped and strengthened this community, and as we strengthen it in our province and our country. As the Council of the Municipality of Kincardine, we are dedicated to learning and acknowledging Indigenous history and culture, and we are committed to actions that move us toward a journey of truth, healing, and reconciliation with the Saugeen Ojibwe Nation, the Métis Nation of Ontario, and the historic Saugeen Métis. Are there any amendments, additions, or deletions to or from the agenda this evening? Once again, I'd remind you to disclose pecuniary interest now or as it arises in the meeting and the nature thereof. And we have the adoption of the minutes of the regular and special meetings of council. We need a mover and seconder that the minutes of the council meeting held on March 13, 2024 be adopted as printed. Councillors Hinchberger and Pranger. All in favor? And that is carried. We begin this evening with our staff reports, and I'd like to ask Lori Fiozzi to lead the discussion and the conversation this evening regarding the Secord Monument and the public engagement process and strategy.
Through you, Mayor Craig. On January 24th, 2024, Council approved the resources needed to engage the community in meaningful conversations and learning about equity, diversity, and inclusion, which will assist Council in its decision-making regarding the Secord Monument. The report before you provides an update on the engagement process, but it also gives you the opportunity to meet with our facilitator, Dr. Laura May Lindo, who's on the line right now with us on Zoom. And before we sort of dive into the process, I just wanted to give you a little bit more of an overview, and then I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Lindo to give you a chance to get to know her and ask any questions that you might have of her. So regarding the choice of the facilitator, I just wanted to provide a bit of background around that. We did some research and around potential facilitators through our municipal networks. And we looked at experience for the facilitators based on successes and all kinds of different factors around the criteria that we learned from other municipalities as we did the consultation around conversations around similar situations as we face ourselves with. When choosing the facilitator, we looked at experience around those leading those discussions around educational subjects, sessions, and sensitive topics, and also handling potentially contentious kind of issues. This included their ability and their past experience to navigate those conversations respectfully, encouraging open dialogue, addressing and including all different viewpoints in the conversations with sensitivity and with fairness. So I also want to note that the role of the facilitator is not to make the recommendation to council. We were directed to have a facilitator that would help collect information, present information gathered from the community that will be presented back to council to assist in the decision-making of council. So ultimately, council will make the decision regarding the future of the monument. Dr. Laura May Lindo was chosen as the consultant for the engagement process. She's a respected educator who holds both a master's and PhD in education. I'm going to introduce you in 1 minute, but just give me 1 more minute just to set up some of the pieces that we've done around engagement. So the process to engage the community is to collect all opinions on the Secord Monument. And central to this process is really to foster an environment of inclusion and create those opportunities for safe and respectful conversations with the community that we all belong to. This first phase of the engagement, which we've started to embark on, is really about collecting information about the issues that we need to consider, about the perspectives and the worries from the community, and community suggestions on the groups and the people that we need to engage in these conversations. At this point, we're not saying what people's opinions are about the monument. We've received lots of them, but right now it's really understanding those worries of the community and the issues that we need to consider. Community suggestions on what groups need to be engaged have been part of this. And so as we launch this first phase of the public survey process, which was launched on March the 12th, we did ask that question in there, and this is helping to inform who we talk to as we move forward. The background document that went with the survey is attached to your report with council, so you have that background document. And we did launch the survey. We already have 438 surveys completed to date, and they were promoted on all kinds of channels: social media, radio, newspaper, postcards, networks, through our networks, etc. And I just want to do a special nod out to Nicole Griffin, our communications coordinator, for handling that with ease and professionalism. I really appreciate her support. So based on the questions that we've been getting as we've submitted, as people have been completing the survey, I think I've been tracking my phone calls. We've been receiving many calls on questions. We have been developing a frequently asked questions document, which is available on the website. And we are responding to the public's questions through that, but also answering them on the telephone. And as we sort of evolve in this process, we'll keep with the FAQs and continue to update that, but it is available on the website. We are planning on doing community conversations with specific groups based on the feedback in April. To date, we've started to send out invitations to groups such as history and heritage groups, equity-seeking groups, and residents requesting interviews. So we have been engaging, and we're planning on those sessions in April. And I do want to really say that this part of the process is really to understand what the worries are. It's really to understand who we need to talk to, and this information will help us feed into the future components and the steps that we need to identify. And we're anticipating that we're going to come back to council with some fulsome reports along the way. You're going to hear the feedback as we collect it. And Dr. Linda will be presenting that information. We're hoping to have a decision come to council for you to make a decision in August. That's kind of the timeline that we're moving towards. Again, but it'll depend on the feedback and how we're progressing in our process. So having said all that, I'd like to introduce you to Dr. Lindo. She's going to provide you with some details about her background, and then you'll have some opportunity to ask some questions of her.
Thank you, Ms. Fiozzi. And welcome, Dr. Lindo. We are delighted to have you with us this evening in our council chambers. We are excited and looking forward to getting to know you. And I will afford you the opportunity to take some time to introduce yourself to us.
Thank you so much, and greetings to everybody who's in the gallery. It's lovely to meet all of you, and to the councillors as well as the mayor. Thank you. I wanted to just start off with a little bit of a personal background about myself, and then I'll go into the professional, primarily because the way that I do my professional work is actually deeply connected to my personal history. And so if you've done any research about me or have heard me speak in the past, I often speak of my parents. I was born and raised in Scarborough, Ontario, but my parents are from Jamaica. And the reason why I wanted to start there was because my family history has shaped the way that I do the equity work that I do. First off, my grandfather on my daddy's side was white, Portuguese, and Jewish. His family actually fled Portugal when there was a rise of anti-Semitism, and they landed in Jamaica. And when he got to Jamaica, he found a job in Jamaica, they called it a busha. And it wasn't actually until I was taking a course on African Canadian history that I had somebody explain to me what it was that job was, and also where that job took place. So my dad used to always say he was born and raised on an estate in Jamaica. And what I found out later was that today we call an estate what many years ago we would call a plantation. And a busha was actually one of the people who was in charge of the plantation. So if I pause that for a moment and jump to my grandmother, my dad's mom was also Jamaican. She was Black, African ancestry, and also Jewish ancestry. And many years ago, as I was actually doing my own doctoral research, I started to think a lot about the fact that my own personal history holds both those who have enslaved others and those who have been enslaved. And because of that, part of what I've always wanted to do, and I strive to do when I'm having conversations around those histories, is to make sure that we have a space where we can all share our opinions about what's going on, and more importantly, our experiences that have brought us into these rooms when we're doing any kind of equity work, or if we're having some more difficult discussions. So with that as my starting point, when I went in, I have 2 undergrad degrees. They're in philosophy, and one is in philosophy and African studies. My master's and PhD, as you heard earlier, are in education. But in particular, I was looking at how we can do anti-racist work in our public school system. But by the time I got into my doctoral program, I realized that a lot of the leaders in the school system need a particular type of support in order to be able to guide those kinds of conversations. And so I started to focus more on what kind of resources do we need to provide to leaders at that point, it was in our school system, to be able to do the inclusion work that's required of them in the Education Act. And so a lot of my work on the ground has been on figuring out where some of the knowledge gaps are, and also what kinds of resources can actually be used to develop and build the inclusive classrooms and communities that we want to create. If I jump ahead, for the last 5 years, so up until July of last year, I was actually a member of provincial parliament for Kitchener Centre. In that capacity, I again found myself trying to find ways to do leadership work that would help to build inclusion, because it is something that we all want, but that also didn't fall into the sort of typical trappings of only hearing from one side of the arguments, of making sure that we can create a space where everybody can actually provide their opinion, especially when it comes to some of the difficult conversations that have arisen around monuments. And so I'm going to flip myself into a more specific discussion about my experience with providing support to folks in various places who have had to deal with monuments in their particular spaces. So the very first example I want to share is it was prior to when I was elected. I was the Director of Diversity and Equity at Wilfrid Laurier University. And while I was in that particular role, there was a discussion of having something called the Prime Minister Statue Project, which was meant to have life-size bronze statues of all of the prime ministers. And public was... there were mixed decisions about how people felt about the project, but the John A. Macdonald statue was actually created and brought onto campus. And with a lot of tensions, including discussions from folks outside of the actual community, but people not just at Laurier, but in the broader community, the president of the institution decided to strike an advisory committee where we would actually begin to listen to community members both on and off of campus, host in-person sessions, as well as some educational sessions for us as an advisory group, including discussions around the history of the creation of monuments, which I found extremely important in the work that we were doing. And then we reported back to the president in order for the president to make some decision about what would happen with that project. So that was my first foray into an advisory position where we were taking some of that information. And in that particular advisory group, we did have some in-person town hall type sessions, but we also were collecting a lot of feedback that people were writing into us. And then as a group, we had to write the report with our recommendations, and all of the people that were part of that advisory, we had to find a way to come to some form of a consensus to do that kind of work and provide that report out to the president. So that was my first example. When I got to Queen's Park, there was a rise of tension. A variety of things were happening, but there was some tension around, again, it was a John A. Macdonald statue that was on Queen's Park grounds. But there were also questions about some of the artwork that was visible at Queen's Park, as well as a desire, in particular with Indigenous communities, to ensure that their histories were also embedded and woven into the art that was available at Queen's Park. And the Speaker of the House, MPP Ted Arnott, struck a diversity committee. We didn't really have an official name, but it was a group of us. We were each from, I think there were 2 of us from every party. And so I was one of the representatives for the official opposition. And we spent some time, again, talking about how do we ensure that Queen's Park is in fact the people's house, which was the language that was often used to describe Queen's Park. And we wanted to make sure that everybody felt that they could be there. We wanted to make sure that there was a preservation of history, which at Queen's Park is an extremely important item to make sure that we attended to. And MPP Arnott was also he had a history of doing that kind of historical work. And so he was very, very interested in finding ways to preserve our history. And so we worked with him to speak about some of the kinds of issues that people were having, to help him to form some of his decisions about some of the pieces that were at Queen's Park. In that particular case, again, it's similar to the role that I'm playing for you folks in council this time round. The goal was to provide insight to the speaker so that the speaker could, in fact, feel more informed as he made some of those decisions. And so there were some busts, for instance, that were moved. There was the inclusion of Indigenous artwork in the chamber at Queen's Park. And that kind of, I think most importantly, the speaker felt supported. And I think part of what has been the most important to me in my own career doing this kind of work is to make sure that the leaders that are tasked with doing decisions on behalf of the public have as much information about the needs of the public as they can possibly have in order to create an informed decision moving forward. Most recently, and something that I'm a part of right now, I'm currently an assistant professor in philosophy at the University of Waterloo. And we've recently had a task force struck again at the behest of the president to speak about freedom of expression. And so I'm actually part of the task force talking about freedom of expression and freedom of speech, again, to ensure not only that we abide by some of the regulatory realities of post-secondary campuses in Ontario. Each university and college has to have a freedom of expression statement. That was something that the Premier had requested of all of the colleges and universities. But also to find a way to ensure that we have a strong understanding of what's needed to engage in serious debate around issues that might actually be quite uncomfortable for people, or other language that can sometimes be used is that it's controversial issues that we're actually discussing. So with that particular task force, we're literally in the midst of our focus group sessions right now. We've been doing a lot of research around what's been happening at different universities and colleges, not just in Canada, but around the globe. And the hope is that we end up with recommendations that would be coming out, get to the president. I think it's supposed to be delivered to the president in May, so that it can be announced in June. And so there are a lot of discussions right now, I would argue, that are happening on the ground in a variety of spaces that require us to find a way to hold both the needs of communities that are underrepresented in a lot of spaces, and viewpoints that are both viewpoints that are difficult for us to hold and ideas that are difficult for us to hold. And so I believe that part of why people have often asked me to step in to help leadership engage in these discussions in meaningful ways is based on other parts of my background. It's great to have a master's and PhD, but a lot of times you spend your time doing a lot of theoretical work, but not as much work on the ground in community. So what I have done over the years is made sure that I can balance that theoretical side out with some more practical skills. And so I happen to be a Crucial Conversations trainer, which is a program that helps to talk through difficult conversations, both in small groups as well as with larger organizations. And so I navigated through that training and became a facilitator when I was at Wilfrid Laurier University. I do have a human rights certificate from Osgoode, which in conversations like the ones that are happening in Kincardine is extremely important. When we're having discussions about the realities of enslavement and some of the ongoing impacts of those realities, it's important to have a sense of how you balance out discussions that are meaningful, where people are really asking questions about histories that they don't know, or asking to clarify histories that they don't know, and when it moves into the protected grounds with our human rights code. And so that certificate has definitely come in very, very handy for me over the years. I do engage in a lot of community building work around equity, with a very clear focus on racism and anti-racist work. The language that I typically use is racial equity. I'm a strong believer that we have to make sure that we build inclusion in ways that are specifically anti-racist. And what that looks like for me also involves having some pretty difficult discussions with folks to figure out where some of the concerns are and how we can come together to build inclusion. I truly, truly believe that when we're trying to build these inclusive communities, that it's something that's co-created. It can't be dictated, but it does have to be something that that we build together. And so what an inclusive community looks like is very much reliant on how much space we provide to each other to be able to speak our truths and to be heard, and then to come to some decisions about the next steps so that we're doing that collaboratively. And the very last thing that I would say before I open it up for any questions, clarifications that you might need just about my background and such, is with regards to this opening survey that we have. In the time that I have been doing this work, I've seen quite a few municipalities have to grapple with some of the monuments and commemorations that that now are troubling to people in community. And oftentimes the go-to is to have a survey or town hall meetings, for instance, people to delegate to council with explicit requests for them to share what they think should happen to the monument. Like, let's just start right there and get some feedback from community. And what I found is that many of the times when that happens, you're running up against two different things. First is that the request is going to community when they are not the ones that have the power to make that decision. And so there are often tensions between the community who is giving you the answer that you've requested and the reality that as council, it's actually going to be up to you in your own fashion to make some decisions about what it is that's going to happen. And so sometimes we find ourselves back to square one, having the same argument again and again. But the other piece that I find that happens when we sort of start right out the gate with what is the answer and what should we do when we ask the public that, is that we don't hold a space for people to actually share what it is that they need or what they're worried about. And so in this particular engagement session, we did something different by first asking people to help inform the next steps of the actual engagement session. It allowed people to provide, and it is allowing people to provide where some of those bigger concerns are, which in my humble opinion will allow council to ensure that they have provided for some of those needs as well. It will also be an opportunity for us to get a strong sense of what's happening in community and to build, make a decision, for you folks to be informed with the for you to have the information that you need to make a well-informed decision and feel confident about that. But B, also to know what kinds of additional support people might need, no matter what decision is made. And so that is, that's where I'm at with my introduction, but absolutely happy to take any questions. And thank you again for giving me this opportunity to introduce myself.
Thank you, Dr. Lindo. I listened to your example regarding the Wilfrid Laurier you were at.
Yes.
With the statues.
Yes.
The president of the college said maybe we should listen before we make a decision. What a great novel concept. So thank you for that good starting place. Council members, comments, questions? Councillor Prenger?
Thank you, through you, Chair. First, I'd just like to say thank you, Dr. Lindo, for being here today and for taking on this case. I think it's incredibly beneficial to, not just for us, but for everyone to hear your background and experience. And it just highlights what you bring to the table that, unfortunately, all of us here are lacking in experience and training, and why we need you. And I really appreciate all the information. I'll also just say, just because I will add a little tidbit. I am a Laurier alum, and I'm sorry we didn't cross paths while I was there, But I'm even more sorry to hear you jumped ship and went to Waterloo.
Well, that's one strike against the good doctors. There we go. Deputy Mayor, please, you had your hand up.
Thank you, Mayor, through you. Thank you very much, Dr. Lindo, for attending today and not only providing your background and your credentials, which are infallible, but also just taking part in this. And I also want to thank our Manager of Strategic Initiatives, Lori Fiozzi, for spearheading this along with staff. The report has been excellent. And the work that has gone into this has been tremendous. Sometimes when we sit on this side of the table, we don't appreciate the various moving parts and the challenges that are faced in navigating what can be difficult conversations. The feedback that we have had has been second to none in terms of the number of surveys in such a short period of time. So I certainly commend the residents who have taken the opportunity to provide their feedback through the survey. It continues on to March 31st, so I encourage those who have yet to do so to fully embrace and engage in the process by providing their feedback through the surveys. There has been undoubtedly a lot of discourse in the last couple of weeks concerning the issue of the monument. A lot of it has been passion-filled, and certainly the encouragement is that that passion be directed through the process. The conversations are beneficial in many respects. And while they are welcomed, I would wholly encourage our community to continue this discourse with the passion, but to do so on a predicated basis, and that being one of respect, to keep the conversations respectful. I remain optimistic that we will find a path forward through this process. And I remain steadfast in my belief that the potential for our greatest growth comes when we're most vulnerable and in the position of being uncomfortable. So I look forward to phase 2, but encourage until then that we all take part in completing the survey. Thank you.
Councillor Hinchberger, please.
Thank you, through you, Mayor. Just touch a bit on some of the sentiments that were expressed originally about why we needed a facilitator. I generally have looked at this particular issue that it is generally a diversity, equity, and inclusion discussion. It just happens to be prompted by a specific issue related to the Secord Monument. And if I think about trying to keep a discussion high level rather than going farther down into the details, I had like 4 layers that I was kind of thinking of this about. One was the DEI discussion. The other one was the American Civil War and its relevance to Canada and our community. The third was the decisions made by the monument committees regarding the monuments. And the fourth, down at the very bottom, where we spend the least of our time, was on the doctor's life. And if anybody's been watching the landscape over the last couple of weeks, both on social media and in newspapers or even out in the public, the dialogue has been all over the place. And to me, further cementing the idea that we needed somebody independent with some background in this to help and come and focus this for us. I do have a question, though, which would be, is how can this council and its individual councillors that it is comprised of help you do your job in this process?
Thank you so much. Because the camera has, it's showing me the councillors, I wasn't sure if I was supposed to wait for the mayor to recognize me to speak, so my apologies.
No, go right ahead.
Okay.
You're fully qualified to answer that question, I think so.
Thank you so much. And so through to you, Councillor, through the mayor. I think one aspect that would be very helpful is for you to make sure that everybody has, or for everybody to make sure that they have my email address. So my contact information is on the website, etc. And if you have individuals in community who are coming to you with concerns, or if they have questions, to actually direct them to me. One of the things that I do know is that part of the joy of having our councillors is that they are connected to various segments of the community, but not every segment of the community will speak to every single councillor. And so if it's possible for you to make sure that your networks are also aware of everything. Given the number of people that are filling out the survey in such a short time, there's clearly passion and excitement about finding a way to engage in a meaningful conversation. But I think that one way that we can ensure that everybody's voices are in fact at the table is to ensure that they do communicate with me. They can always send me an email. So if there's concerns about the survey, or if they have questions before they complete the survey, I'm more than willing to take emails from folks and to sit down and chat with them. And if there are smaller groups, I think one of the questions on the opening survey is about groups that you feel that residents feel I should be speaking with. And by all means, if you can ask them to do that, that would be great. Because I do know in my community out in Waterloo region, there's so many smaller community groups that don't necessarily get mentioned when bigger decisions like this are being made. And so I was hoping that that would be an opportunity for some of those smaller groups that might be very much impacted and invested in this discussion to come out and speak to me as well when I get to come in person.
Councillor Stewart, please.
Thank you, and through you, Chair, welcome. It's good that you have MPP experience. Now, I'm going to ask a question, and I think you're going to find it sort of interesting. The mayor certainly found it interesting talking to my mother, who will be 98 in June, and she was born and raised in Kincardine at the hospital. And I'm hoping, you're talking about all these different groups. When you do visit us, I'm going to take you over to the Tiverton Manor, where people are probably 90 to 102, and most of them grew up in the community. I think it'd be very interesting for yourself and even myself to really get their perspective. Like you said, you want to reach all the community. So I think you'll find it and you maybe want to talk to the mayor first, because he was a little bit shocked what my mother talks about, but she'll tell you the truth and nothing but the truth. Looking forward to your visits. Thank you.
All right. Dr. Lindo, thank you so much for spending some time with us this evening, to making yourself available. And as our council and myself will express, we are delighted that you are working in cooperation with our council to come up with a well-informed decision-making process. Once again, thanks very much.
Thank you so much.
Ms. Fiocchi, any wrap-up comments? We good to go? Good to go. All right. Moving on, Parks and Recreation Strategic Plan. We need a mover and seconder that council received the 2024 Parks and Recreation Strategic Plan, moved by Councillor Stewart and Kavanaugh. And I'd like to introduce our Director of Community Services, Jane Jagaleski, and you can introduce our ancillary presenters and team that's here supporting you in large numbers this evening.
Great, thank you. And through you, yes, it's a pleasure to welcome Tracy McQueen this evening from MGA. And online, we also have Terry Ullman and Jennifer Reynolds as part of the MGA team. As Ms. McQueen starts to make her way up to the podium, I just wanted to take a minute to say a couple of words. And first of all, I wanted to thank council for believing in this project and supporting this project along the way. It's been a very enlightening process. I think we started working with MGA beginning of last summer. The weather was a lot nicer then than it is today, let's put it that way. So it's been some time since we've been working together on this project. I also wanted to take a minute to thank the public. The public has been so much a large part of this process, or the engagement processes, whether it's been online, attending key informant meetings individually, or coming to engagement meetings. It's been a pleasure to meet a lot of them and to hear their voices as well. And certainly I've shared with this council previously that MGA has certainly gone beyond the scope of the plan that we developed, and that wasn't by accident. As I indicated before, the engagement has been phenomenal, and they have taken that wave and rode with that, and met with many community members throughout the process. And finally, I did want to thank the community services team, and many of them are here this evening with us. They have a vested interest in the development of this plan and looking forward to its fruition. So I welcome them this evening as well. So at this point, I'd like to turn it over to Tracy to provide a presentation for us.
Good evening. It's a pleasure to be here this evening. As Jane alluded, my name is Tracy McQueen. I'm with McQueen Galloway Associates, MGA, and my colleagues Jennifer and Terry are on the Zoom link. Tonight, I'll lead you through a short presentation on the strategic plan process. And to make it simpler, my colleagues will do the Q&A if there's questions at the end. So let's talk about the journey. We did, as Jane alluded, we started in the summer of 2023 in what we call phase 1 out of 4 phases, where we really looked at all the analysis and all the data, the policies, the plan, the financials, the utilization, the facility conditions and assessments, as well as program and event analysis, and looking at the trends and the national policies. As we talked about, the phase 2 was engagement, where we really had a robust engagement. We had community workshops. We did 2 of them. We had virtual engagements. We had online survey. We did a high school workshop with the grade 10 civics class. We had conversations with the mayor and several of the counselors that are in the room, as well as virtual Councillor Kennedy, and staff and user groups, as Jane alluded to. We had key stakeholder meetings, partner organizations, neighborhood associations, and we met extensively with the Accessibility Committee twice. So as you can see, the engagement went throughout the process. And if you want to flip the slide to a little bit further, we go to the next one. Maybe I'm talking too fast for you. There, perfect. So as we said, our 2 open houses, we had 150 people attend, either in the September one or the October one. And interviews were throughout a 6-month process, as well as focus groups. I challenge you, our online survey had 700 people. So you have a couple more 100 to go on your survey, Lori. So we had great response on our survey, and as well as we did an email survey to the sports users. So what do we do with all that information? We have all the engagement inputs, plus all the analytical data, and then we developed what we call the situational analysis report. So that was in your agenda, a comprehensive report with all that information in it. It has 5 sections in it: the background research, information on all the facilities, the parklands and the trails. The section 3 is operating and capital budget analysis, as well as section 4 is on the service delivery. And the final section was the community engagement. So all that information with this situational analysis report, which was approved, and all the engagement, we started developing the Parks and Recreation Strategic Plan. Next slide. Before we get into the strategic plan, I wanted to show this slide to show how complex and difficult this plan was compared to some of others that we have done. We illusioned of a juggling act because there was many other influences that took place. The unknowns of the mega school, the Bruce C. Power project, the deferred infrastructure renewal, the timing and development of development, the decisions on Connaught Park, as well as human and financial resources. So what we're here tonight is to look at the strategic plan. How is the strategic plan set up? We came up with 4 strategic themes. 1 being investment and sustainability. Theme 2, supportive community. Theme 3, enhancing the customer experience. And the final theme 4, change management. Under those 4 themes, there's 133 recommendations over 10 years. In this plan, there is also a staff document with all the recommendations with suggested timing. So we've broken them down to short term, medium, and long term. We've also indicated in this document the other policies that they all relate to. So in many recommendations, there's alignment to other policies, for instance, the Waterfront Master Plan, the Official Plan, as well as the Integrated Strategy 2.0. As this was so important to MGA to make sure that this strategic plan was aligned with many of the other work that the municipality is doing. So I'll talk about, not in detail, but just at a high level, we'll talk about theme 1, investment and sustainability. Next slide. Thank you. This was the largest area with 53 recommendations over a 10-year period. And on many of these, without reading them all, I'll just give you a highlight of some of the recommendations you would find in this section. So conducting a facility assessment on all the components of the pool for the Davidson Center. Revitalization of playgrounds on a yearly basis. Invest in a complete trails master plan. Work with the treasurer to structure the cost centers to really understand the cost, the true cost of Parks and Recreation, as well as the recovery costs. Theme 2 is supportive community with 13 recommendations. In this area, you'll find recommendations about how to recommendations on engaging community members in decision-making for programs and services. Recommendations on tracking annual participation and using data for true space allocation. Implementation of adopt a trail or park programs with partners within the municipality. Theme 3, enhancing the customer experience. 32 recommendations. Primarily in this section, you'll see recommendations about accessibility, for the pathways and playgrounds. We heard a lot about winterizing washrooms from the community, so a washroom audit. Developing a waterfront beach ambassador program as we coincide with your waterfront master plan. New programs, whether they're indoor or outdoor opportunities, you will find recommendations in this section, as well as developing and updating policies and procedures. One of the other bigger areas is the analysis of user fees. Theme 4, change management. This was the last theme with 35 recommendations. Here in this section, you'll see recommendations on evaluating the community halls, as well as changes to the official plan. Working with Kincardine Gymnastics Club and the Agricultural Society. Recommendations on improving maintenance standards, playability for your sports fields. Recommendations on enhancing communication with the Kincardine Trail groups. Developing metrics and best practices to monitor staff complement. And additional staff resources for special events, revenue generation, and support to our volunteer organizations. On a high level, that is the master plan or strategic plan for the municipality. But what is the role of council? Council's role in the strategic plan, if we want to really improve maintenance, better our facilities, better our indoor and outdoor amenities, signage, accessibility. Council needs to support the strategic plan. Staff needs to support the strategic plan. We need to set realistic expectations for the community and make sure we're communicating those expectations back to them. Increase the financial support for Parks and Recreation, but also look for other ways Parks and Recreation can be supported, whether it's by partnerships, volunteers, or working with our social agencies and other private parties. Looking for new revenue streams. So as I come to the closing of the presentation, it's really important for us that we are aware that this whole process should be conducted annually on a review process, on a review. And why would we want to do that? Because new and changed information comes along. Financial review, as we look for new revenue sources, as we go back to that juggling slide, in 10 years, many of those balls will be answered. And so then we can continue to work on our strategic plan. We want to continue to hear the community feedback, as there will also be changes in trends, as well as staff additions or change of duties. There'll also be changes in municipal and regional priorities, and the municipality will also have growth impacts. So in closing, I just want to say that this strategic plan needs to be flexible. It will be a roadmap for staff and for council, and they'll also need to be accountable for the delivery of it. And as you said in your introduction remarks, Jane, we too want to thank the team. Many of are sitting right there in the front row, joining you, council, but also the staff that's sitting back here, because this is their plan too. This will help them with their jobs and their responsibilities and give them clear direction. And here is Penny, Sarah, Laura, Christina, and Chris. And Mike's in the front too. And so is Karen. And they were all a vital part of this master plan or strategic plan. So in that, I'd like to say thank you to everyone from the MGA and to the municipality.
Thank you, Ms. McQueen, for that report. Director, any comments before we open it up to council comments? So just one?
Yeah,
I
I'll
thought
just
there'd
say
be
one, and then I'll open it up for everyone to ask questions. But I just wanted to make a comment. You know, I've done a few of these plans over the years, and I've worked with a number of consultants. And I must admit, this has been a wonderful consulting team to work with. I have been thoroughly impressed, have been speaking their praises, not only in this room, but in the theater of other recreation communities. And it's been a pleasure working with them.
So just a reminder for council, this is a receive the report. This is the 40,000 foot look at recreation and park strategic plans. So comments, questions, thoughts? Councillor Blackwell, please.
Thank you. Through you, I really do want to echo our director's comments that this kind of goes beyond really what I was expecting. It's extraordinarily thorough. It feels very connected to our community and the priorities that I heard at the sessions and in conversation with folks. You know, reading the report, the draft report we got was a bit like peeling an onion. I always felt like it sent me off to research something else and come back. So it was really quite wonderful, and it's been a lot to try and to bite into. One of the things I'll say is no shade intended at any of our incredible operations staff, but when I talk to folks about what they love living in, about living in our municipality, they really mention our parks and recs and our natural facilities, our outdoor spaces, our amenities. And so having a really good roadmap to understand how to maintain them, how to grow responsibly, how to really address the needs of all of our community is something that I'm really excited by and looking at continuing to work with this. So thank you.
Was your hand going up, Deputy Mayor? I saw that. I saw that.
Thank you, Mayor, through you. The report absolutely went beyond what I was expecting, and I thought what was very helpful were the specific recommendations. I know that there is a lot of discussion ongoing in the community and elsewhere concerning the recommendations, but I think at the very least it has helped to narrow and center some of those discussions as to how we'll move forward. And I thought that was very important because often we have a plan effectively, but this took it to the next level with regards to sort of a step-by-step process, indicating how we move forward with certainly some of these areas. And I appreciate this evening, and certainly around this table, no doubt, there'll be differing opinions about some of those recommendations, but I think just from the basis of receiving this report, it was very helpful. At least it's a starting point for us. So thank you.
Councillor Hinchberger and then Councillor Stewart.
Thank you through you, Mayor. Thank you for the report. It's really extensive. One of the things I didn't appreciate in the, I guess you could say, 30 years I lived here before I was elected was that I've come to the conclusion that although we amalgamated in 2000, in many ways, we're still not amalgamated. And one of the things that I really liked was you took a municipal approach from Saratoga Road up to North Bruce and essentially over to County Road 1 of the whole thing. And you may have highlighted some things that some people in certain parts of the community aren't going to like what they read, but it's very systematic. And I really like that there's a few pieces of large property, Connaught Park, which I live very close to, the Davidson Center. You can read between the lines. Well, it's pretty obvious that there needs to be in some cases, and it's based on looking at the municipality as a whole. The municipality needs to sit down, decide what the future is going to look like. And for some of these things, there are multiple options, and it needs to do some analysis, including things in order to put numbers to it, which is what I really liked about it. I prefer numbers. There's a lot of numbers in this. One of the things too, we're going to have to square up this with our asset management plan, which basically says the public wants a family diner level of service, when I think there's a lot of evidence that in the rec area, there's a lot of groups that are looking for more than that. The one thing I will say is that I'm still trying to rationalize in my mind. Councillor Steinhoff-Gray couldn't be here tonight. She's working nights. And there's parts of it as far as community centers in beyond Ward 1 in Kincardine that I think need to be treated a little differently than a park or a rec facility. I understand the concept of driving to go to a park or go to recreation, but there's something more like intrinsic or fundamental to a community about a community center. And the situation in Tiverton and Ward 3 is, I'm not completely convinced that the recommendations in the report kind of touch on that. Thanks.
Councillor Stewart, please.
Thank you. Through you, Chair. I think Councillor Kennedy and myself were here last term when a consultant company came and talked about their plan, and wow, this is a lot different. This is well done. I'm really enjoying reading it. It's my third time reading it. And to be honest with you, I'm looking forward to, and Jane, you have a lot of work to do, but we're going to have to organize some days just to roll up our sleeves and start getting into this financially and looking forward. And even as my fellow councillor said in Ward 3, we might have to look at things a little differently, but report, well done. Thank you for doing it. It's a great job. And I'm looking forward to getting into the nitty gritty soon. And I'd like to get it done because we want to start doing the budgets next fall for next year. So set up a couple of days and I'll be here. Thank you.
Right.
Councillor Kennedy, please.
Yep. Anyways. Oh, through the chair, sorry. Yeah, just want to thank Tracy and her team to for the great job they've did. And one thing the public has to realize is that some of these major recommendations are for something that this council or future councils, I'm sure we'll have a lot of discussion about and a lot of dialogue with the public about. So I think sometimes when people read something, they think that's the way it's going to be. But as we know, councils and things can change. But this is a great start for any council going forward. Thank you.
Councillor Pranger, please.
Thank you, through you, Chair. I too would like to thank you for all the work put into this. It's definitely different than what I was expecting. I didn't expect the situational analysis report at all, to be honest. I figured we'd get, the plan and that was it. And I actually really appreciate that there was so much information in there that I didn't even realize you were going to consider some of that, which I was worried about. So I was really glad to see that. And it provided information I was not aware of. So there's lots of detail to go through. And one of the things I appreciate is in this report is the policy alignment. I think that's a really important fact that gets missed easily. And how do we align our policies with the decisions we make? And some of the recommendations in there were actually really on point. So thank you for that. I do have a specific question. I'd like to know if during your community engagement, were some of the users, like the direct users of the outdoor spaces, consulted to ask them what their needs and wants are for the future? I'm specifically thinking about two different groups, Kincardine Soccer and Tiverton Rugby, excuse me. I know the Kincardine Soccer League and both adult and minor have put a lot of effort into sort of planning out all their soccer fields and what they wanted to do next. And we've unfortunately had to make some tough decisions about taking some projects out of our budget for those fields. And I didn't see anything about the improvements that really do need to go into some of them. You had some great recommendations for some of those fields, and I liked what was there. I just thought there might be a little bit missing, and it might have been because they weren't directly consulted. So I was just curious. And the other example was the Tiverton rugby team or their league. I was surprised to see that there was a recommendation to sort of take their field away and use it for something else, since they fundraised on their own and spent a lot of time and effort. I think they spent almost or more than 90,000 improving that field and making it specifically perfect for rugby. So I was a little shocked to see that there would be a recommendation like that. So I just wanted to know if they were consulted too. Thanks.
If we could, through you, Mayor, Terry, would you like to address that? Just so we can, or I can.
Yes, I can speak to sorry, through you, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Mayor, to the councillor, that by all means the soccer was consulted, and in fact in the situational analysis report there will be a full summary of the responses to their questions. So I'm not sure specifically what you are referring to, but in our report, effectively we're recommending that that there continue to be dialogue between the soccer association and the municipality in terms of facility allocation or field allocation, prioritizing what improvements are required to this soccer pitches, and then as well as forecasting their growth numbers so that staff can effectively plan through a capital budget process for improvements or expansions of fields. Regarding the rugby, we did not have any specific interactions with the Rugby Association. It was our understanding through staff that they were a non-resident group that had not taken permits out for the use of the Tiverton rugby fields since the pandemic, and staff are under the impression that they have relocated to another area.
So that I acknowledge your question regarding engagement, and as this is a living document, as great as it was it absolutely perfect in every respect? Sorry, really close, but there's always room for cracks in the concrete. So it's the public engagement part, whether there's opportunity to engage going forward. You know, you can rephrase that if you would like again, Councillor, but that seems the larger picture question that we ask is, if there was a group missed at this point, is there opportunity for them to have the conversation going forward to be part of this strategic plan? Is that something like you were wondering, or did you have a different approach? Okay. Okay, so I will echo the council's comments regarding the in-depth look at our strategic plan going forward. I know that our one councillor loves numbers, and myself, it's kind of the conceptual idea that there are no numbers connected to this, but we're kind of sensing that it's going to do this. So we've got this balance, this tension between here's the reality and over here's the dream, but here's the reality, and over there's the dream again. So I expect that we will begin to see some recommendations being put forward in our 2025 budget to support the work that's been done already. Anything else? Councillor Prenger, please.
Thank you, through your chair. I'll just follow up. Thank you for the response. It was just a general, did we consult or not? And I'm glad to hear that we probably have future opportunity to do more consulting with community groups. And with that in mind, piggybacking on what the mayor just said, I actually think this is a really great starting point. We clearly, based on your recommendations, have some more planning to do, and it's gonna take some time. Doing some analyses and figuring out what our priorities are and where to start. But I'd actually think this is probably the best starting point we probably could have hoped for. Thank you.
So we have a motion before us that we receive the 2024 Parks and Recreation Strategic Plan. All in favor? Anyone opposed? And that is carried unanimously. Thank you, Director and team.
Thank you.
Recreation Financial Assistance Program update. We need a mover and seconder that council repeal policy PR 2.1 Recreation and Leisure Financial Assistance Program and enter into a program partnership agreement with the County of Bruce, which will allow municipality of Kincardine residents to access the County of Bruce Child Activity Assistance Program in Q2 2024. We need a mover and seconder, Councillors Stewart and Deputy Mayor Clark. Any discussion? All in favor?
Hello, do you? Hello? Oh,
Okay. Councillor Blackwell and then Councillor Kennedy.
Hi, thank you, through you. You're quick on the draw there. I'm actually going to request that we defer this 2 weeks. I know that will take us into Q2, but we have had a lot on our plate this week, and one of the things that I would like to do is dive a little bit deeper into the policy recommendations from Parks and Rec Ontario around fee assistance programs. I'm really excited about the partnership with Bruce County, but I just want to make sure that I'm wrapping my head around all of the implications and recommendations on best practice from across the province. So I'm just not feeling quite ready yet. If other people feel they are, that's fine, but I would appreciate an extra 2 weeks just to be able to take a look at that, some other documents and policies.
So do you like to make a motion to defer?
Sorry, that's a motion to defer, please.
For 2 weeks?
For 2 weeks, yes.
Is there a seconder for that? Councillor Prenger, any discussion? All in favor? Anyone opposed? And that deferral was carried. Davidson Center Ice Resurfacer Contract Award. We need a mover and seconder. The council award the Davidson Center ice resurfacer to the Zamboni Company for the bid price of $161,763.45. And further, the cost overage of $11,763.45 be funded in part from the sale of the surplus Olympia ice resurfacer at the Tiverton Arena, with the remainder being funded from the Life Cycle Reserve Fund. Councilors Hinchberger and Stewart, any discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? That's carried. Fuel tank dispensing, Kincardine Marina. Need a mover and seconder. The council award the contract for new fuel tank.
Okay.
Oh, I'm sorry. Whoa. Just a minute.
What? Yeah, I can do that. Here. Sorry.
Okay. All right, the council award the contract for new fuel tanks at the Kincardine Marina to Clay Bar Contracting Inc. for the amount of $431,880.24. And further, that the 2024 budget be amended to $497,411 to fund the additional project costs of $169,411 from the Life Cycle Reserve Fund, with the amount to be repaid from future marina profits. Moved by councilors Hinchberger and Stewart. Discussion? Councilor Stewart, please.
Yes, thank you very much, and through you. This is a little bit of a surprise. I think it's a surprise for everyone. I just wanted to comment. We're taking out all the 150 from the reserve fund, and you're going to ask them to bring in about 170,000. And I just want to make sure they're okay with that. And I'll have a follow-up after that.
And through you, certainly with the representatives, I've been working with the marina. It's not the direction we really wanted to go in. It's a surprise for all of us, no doubt about it. But it is the backbone of marina services. And so in order to get transients here and to have our seasonal slip holders not going to other marinas, it's certainly an amenity we have to provide if we want to continue to remain in the marina industry. So yeah, certainly not the report we wanted to bring forward, and we try and get creative with some of these, and where possible, in keeping within our procurement policies, change scope wherever possible. Unfortunately, with this one, it just doesn't allow us to.
Councilor Stewart.
Just to follow up, because there's still one unknown, and being in the gas business for such a long time, you probably know exactly the pollution factor, because when you take out tanks that are probably bare steel, I'm hoping, cross the fingers, because you might have to come back. It all depends on what the soil is and everything else. So there might be some additional costs that the marine folks, I saw it later on in the consent file, you've increased their fees, I guess so, but it's going to take them a while to pay that back, but it's awful big of them that they understand it's their project and it's not the taxpayers. So thank you.
Councilor Kavanaugh.
Thank you. And through the chair, if I could just ask for a ballpark, it says with the amount to be repaid from future marina profits, what kind of timeline would you anticipate it would take for this to get squared away?
Thank you for the question. Yeah, originally when we were looking at keeping it within budget, we were about, I think it was 3 to 4 years, and we've extended it probably to 7 years at this point, in order, again, for it to be borne on the users of the facility as opposed to the taxpayers.
All in favor? Anyone opposed? That's carried. FAD's deviation at Kincardine Library washroom renovations. We need a mover and seconder. The council approves a deviation from the facility accessibility design standards for the Kincardine Library washroom renovation project to exempt the renovations from the 2,500 millimeter turning radius requirement to 2,000 millimeters. Moved by councilors Pranger and Hinchberger. Deputy Mayor, you want to speak to any of this? Don't have to if you don't want.
Thank you, Mayor, through you. I think it's certainly unfortunate that the entire washroom won't be wholly accessible in terms of in accordance with the FADs. I understand that it's technically infeasible and falls within an exception. I don't when I was reading through, I guess I understand that 90% of the washroom will be more accessible, and it doesn't seem like there's a lot of options. I wonder if you could comment on that, if there's any options available at all, or if it's a matter of costing, or if there just practically isn't, and if we don't accept this, then it's just not gonna go ahead. Thanks.
Thank you for the question and through you, and certainly trying to keep within the scope of budget as well. We recognize the fact that there's limited areas. It's an old building, it's over 100-year-old building, I think it is at this point. And we're trying to keep in the same footprint of where the existing infrastructure is. And in order to do that and to stay within budget, we've got some limitations when we look at stairwells, when we look at concrete walls is another thing that we are having to deal with. So I can honestly say the stars are not in line with this project, and this is the best possible scenario that we have working with an architect to present to council.
Further discussion? All in favor? And that's carried. 2024 fleet tender RFT 2024-01 supply and delivery of 2 pickup trucks. Need a mover and seconder. The council award contract OPS RFT 2023-01 to Finch Auto Group for the tendered amount of $110,685.37. Moved by councillors Kavanagh and Blackwell. Any discussion? Councillor Stewart.
Thank you, and through you, I'm always critical about bids. Job well done. You had a lot of bids, numbers I haven't seen, like you said 21. So, I can be critical, but I also can be complimentary. Job well done. Thank you.
All in favor? And that's carried. 2024 maintenance gravel tender. Need a mover and seconder. The council award the 2024 gravel or granular A gravel tender OPS RFT 2024-14 to Johnson Brothers Bothwell Limited for the tendered amount $368,625.60. Moved by councillors Hinchberger and Stewart. Any discussion? Councillor Stewart.
It'll be quick. I just, you said it in your report, and thank you very much for doing your report. Yeah, that was a little bit shocking over the 2 years, a 21% increase. I guess gravel's gravel, but we're gonna have to take that in consideration as we move forward or find our own gravel pit. But just wanted, well done, and I'll approve this. Thank you.
All in favor? That's carried. Award Kincardine Water Treatment Plant Reservoir Waterproofing Environmental Services. We need a mover and seconder. The council award the contract for waterproofing the Kincardine Water Treatment Reservoir to DJ Pete Roofing and Sheet Metal Limited for the bid price of $241,656, excluding the municipal share of HST. And further, the council approve a budget amendment to increase the cost of this project by $60,000 to $310,000 funded from the Water Reserve Fund. Councillors Kavanagh and Hinchberger. Any discussion? Councillor Stewart.
Apologize once again, but through you, Mayor, you have the $60,000 contingency fee. I believe $40,000 is in case there is some waterproofing already that has to be removed. So this thing actually, we're approving the $60,000, but it might not be $60,000. Is that correct?
Through you, Mayor Craig, that's correct. So the idea of the tender was that we would look after the removal of soil. A lot of the bids we get aren't local, so it's much easier for us to get local contractors to take the soil off and then look after getting it put back on. So we estimate that to probably be about $20,000 by the time we're done in hydroseed and everything. And then we're concerned about a contingency that if we do need to do a little bit of purging of the cement on the top or ran into some existing waterproofing that needs to be stripped, we would, that isn't included in the tender, so that work would have to be completed before we can waterproof.
All in favor? That's carried. 2024 recommended community investment grant allocations. Need a mover and seconder. The council approve the community investment grant allocation as recommended by the Community Investment Grant Committee. Councillors
Sorry, through the chair, I have to use this opportunity to declare a conflict of interest. In accordance with the Municipal Conflict of Interest Act, I, Rory Kavanagh, declare an indirect pecuniary interest with regards to several groups, including the Kincardine Skate Club and Kincardine and District Minor Soccer.
Any other conflicts? Councillor Kennedy, please.
I've got to, excuse me, I got to declare a conflict on the hospital fundraiser, Rock with Your Dogs. Thanks.
Deputy Mayor?
I'm going to declare a conflict in relation to the Blues Festival, the Skating Association, Minor Kincardine Soccer Association.
Anyone else? Okay, so we need a mover and seconder for it. Councillors Hinchberger and Stewart. Any discussion? All in favor? That's carried. Come back,
Guys,
sit
can you
down
come
again.
sit down?
There we go.
Yeah.
Excellent. All right, so I'm gonna have a drink of water before I start the next. We need a, oh, it's moved by Beth Blackwell, seconded by Rory Kavanagh. Whereas rising cost of living and rapid inflation is putting significant financial pressure on individuals and families, especially those living in poverty. Whereas the Ontario Works rates have been frozen since 2018 at $7.33 per month. Whereas the Ontario Disability Support Program rates were increased by 6.5% in July 23 to $13.08, but remains below the 2018 value of $13.76 when adjusted for inflation. Whereas individuals and families relying on Ontario Works and ODSP are legislated into poverty, living 40 to 60% under the official poverty line and below the deep poverty line. And whereas decreasing poverty levels benefits individuals and their communities by reducing reliance on food banks, social services, healthcare, emergency services, and other supports, as well as improving quality of life and creating positive local economic impacts. Whereas in 2021, Statistics Canada reported that 10.7% of residents and 12.4% of children in Bruce County are living in low-income households. And whereas the County of Bruce, as a designated service manager, does not have the resources, capacity, or funding to provide the necessary income, housing, or health-related supports required to lift a growing percentage of residents out of chronic poverty. And whereas leadership and urgent action is needed from the provincial government to immediately address the rising levels of poverty in Ontario, with a particular focus on those receiving Ontario Works and Ontario Disability Support Programs. Now therefore be it resolved that the Council of the Municipality of Kincardine calls on the provincial government to double the Ontario Works and Ontario Disability Support Program rates. B, index Ontario Works rates in addition to the ODSP rates annually to inflation. C, increase the earning exemption for Ontario Works resident or recipients. D, end clawbacks on current federal income supports and any future federal income supports, including the announced Canada Disability Benefit. And further, that this letter be sent to a lot of people that need to read it. All in favor? Is anyone opposed? That's carried. Next motion on the floor here. Council composition and ward boundary review. Moved by Rory Kavanagh and Beth Blackwell. The council directs staff to provide a report outlining the council composition and ward boundary review process, including timelines and an approximate budget. Discussion, Councillor Kavanagh.
Thank you very much. And through the chair, I just want to highlight the uniqueness of our writing styles between myself and Councillor Blackwell there. This is something that it comes up and it has a bit of a time sensitivity to it because it has to be in place prior to the next election. It's something that I personally feel that perhaps we could in a search to be more effective and more efficient as a council, consider that perhaps 9 of us sitting here is not the right number. And I'd like to see that reduced going forward. I talked to staff, and this was the wording and feedback that they provided as sort of the next step, where they would come back with what it would cost and what would be considered going forward.
Further discussion? All in favor? And that's carried. Notice of motion, any notices of motion? All right, consideration of bylaws. 2024 rates and fees amendment bylaw. We need a mover and seconder that the 2024 rates and fees amendment bylaw be deemed to be read first, second, third time, finally passed and numbered as bylaw 2024-043. This will be specific to the marina. Director, you want to comment on this? Manager?
Through the chair, the pickleball fee is for outdoor pickleball that takes place on the tennis courts. This will be the 3rd summer it's taken place. We have charged a fee in the past. We just forgot to add it to the rates and fees bylaw. So we're doing it now, so it'll be in effect for when they play May of this year.
All in favor? That's carried. Oh, moved in second by Councilors Kavanaugh and Stewart. All in favor? Still passed, okay. BMTS Legacy Fund Policy Bylaw. We need a mover and seconder that the BMTS Legacy Fund Policy Bylaw to be deemed to read the first, second, third time, finally passed and numbered as bylaw 2024-044. Moved by Councilors Inchberger and Blackwell. Comment? CAO?
I just want to confirm that once we have the final figures, that will be inserted. Yeah, just want to make sure everyone understands that. Thanks.
All in favor? Any opposed? That's carried. Community Safety and Policing Agreement 2024 bylaw. We need a mover and seconder that the Community Safety and Policing Agreement bylaw be deemed to be read a first, second, third time, finally passed and numbered as bylaw 2024-046. Moved and seconded by Councilors Kavanaugh and Inchberger. Comment, discussion? Councilor Stewart, please.
Yeah, I didn't vote in favor of this the last time, and we get another crack at this, in other words, to talk about this. I think that this is signing us up for 3 years, if I'm standard correct. CAO, is this a 3-year contract? So we're looking at about $360,000. I just don't see the endorsements coming from the school board or anything on this. I think the money could be used more effectively in after-school programs and everything. And I just want the council just to have another quick vote. I might even ask for a recorded vote. That I'm just not in favor of this. I think the money could be used other places, and I think it'd be more effective. Reading reports that my fellow councillor gave to me about the SRI program in Ontario doesn't seem to have a lot of validity yet. And that's one of the problems, even with the police department, they're talking about they need more research done on it to make sure that it has value. So I am not going to support this, and I hope my fellow councillors will support me, but that's up to you individually. Thank you.
Councilor Kavanaugh, please.
Thank you very much. Through the chair, will I acknowledge that there are some concerns with this, and the school board is reviewing their policy and their relationship to policing as a whole. There still remains the opportunity to change the amendment to be broader in scope, to not focus on specifically school resource, but community safety officer. You'd essentially be broadening the scope, and in a lot of those areas, they overlap. One of the things that can happen there, for example, the last couple of months, our SRO has been busy outside Kincard and Tiverton School there, doing speed enforcement and traffic safety. It's one of the few ways that we can directly influence police operations within our municipality. And by not signing the or going forward with this now, we basically lose it for the foreseeable future. And so if there's a desire to change it and change the scope, and that would make people feel better, I'm 100% in favor of that. But the concern I have very much is that it will if we choose to get rid of it, I think we will regret that going forward.
Councillor Hinchberger, please.
Thank you, through you, Mayor. I just want to, I'm reading condition 14 of the agreement. Either party to this agreement may terminate upon 1-year written notice of the termination to the other party. So I've heard that we're in for 3 years no matter what, but yet this would tell me otherwise, and I'm just looking for somebody to tell me which is which.
Sierra, please.
Sure. Through you, Mayor. So the terms of the agreement are exactly as stated. It's 3-year term. They offered a 3-year or a 6-year term. But the notice provisions with respect to termination are as you have noted.
Councillor Pranger, please.
Thank you, through you, Chair. I've been on the fence about this one myself. I try to weigh the perspectives of, say, the competing perspectives of Councillor Stewart and Councillor Kavanaugh, because I think they both have valid points. So it's a tough one. However, I would like, regardless of the decision made today, I would like to know or suggest that we take a deeper look at what that $360,000 or whatever we would have left over if we decided to terminate the agreement, if we went forward with it, the kind of thing, whatever those funds could go to, and what benefit that might have, and do sort of a cost comparison analysis sort of thing, cost benefit analysis. I'd like to look at the different options and where that money could be going and what benefits we'd be getting from the different options, really.
Through you, or to you, Mayor, the timing with respect to this, the council will recall from the previous meeting, unfortunately, not much time to consider this, as we were notified at the beginning of March that this agreement would have to be redone. So there's been an existing agreement that the municipality has had in place, but because of the legislative changes, there was an obligation with the Ministry of Solicitor General to update it, and they can only offer this to municipalities that have existing enhancements because of the moratorium. So you really are under a time crunch to make a decision if you want to move forward for this period of time. You have to make a decision before April 1st in order for that agreement to stay in effect.
So the recommendation of an analysis is very appropriate, but there's no time. The decision is effectively made this evening. Further, you wanted to speak, Deputy Mayor, please?
Thank you, Mayor, through you. Very much like Councillor Stewart, I have some struggles with this school resource officer. I've heard what Councillor Kavanaugh said about perhaps broadening the scope. I don't think, in my case, that necessarily alleviates my concerns. That being said, Councillor Pranger makes that's a valid point about investigating a little bit further. And I think at the end of the 3-year contract, if that's what the council decides to do, that will be helpful information because we just don't have it at the moment. I would caution us if the council's going ahead with this. I think we have to go ahead on the premise that it's a minimum of 3 years. I think we had this discussion last time about acting in good faith. So whilst it does give the termination ability to terminate, they're very clear in stating that it's a 3 or 6 year. So if there's a change in circumstance, I understand that, but I wouldn't go in on the premise that you terminate in a year. I struggle with this, and I don't think I can support the school resource officer in its current form.
Further comments? Do you have any requests from here on in regarding the voting process, Councillor Stewart?
Yeah, I think we need a recorded vote. It was pretty close last time, 5-4, but I'd like to see another recorded vote. Thank you.
Councillor Stewart?
No.
Yeah. Counselor Prenger? Oh, sorry, Counselor Blackwell?
No.
Counselor Kennedy?
Yes.
Counselor Kavanaugh?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Clark?
No.
Counselor Hinchberger?
Yes.
Counselor Prenger? No. And Mayor?
No.
Okay, that's defeated.
5-3.
5-3.
Well, it should work. A motion to pass bylaws. We need a mover and seconder that the following bylaws be read first, second, third time, and finally passed this 27th day of March 2024. Award the Davidson Center Ice Resurfaces Surfacer. Award replacement of Kincardine Marina fuel dispensing facilities. Award 2 half-ton pickup trucks. Granular A gravel. And Kincardine water treatment reservoir waterproofing tender. Moved by Councilors Hinchberger and Stewart. Any discussion? All in favor? And those are carried. We now have the consent agenda. Items listed under this agenda are considered routine, enacted in one motion, and of course, unless any councillor has an item that they would like withdrawn for consideration this evening or in a future council meeting. Councillor Hinchberger, please.
Thank you through you, Mayor. I think scrolling here, 7.1 C, which is private tree bylaw correspondence. I think if I got that identified correctly. I'm just going to make a comment here. There's several letters in here related to the draft tree bylaw, which will come towards council in the future. I'm only going to speak about the two that are opposed to it. I think there's a bit of a misconception without talking to the people involved that somehow that we're creating some duplication or overlap with what exists with the county forestry management bylaw. And I'd just like to point out that if a thorough read of the exemptions section would identify that that is not the case, and even if we had not identified in our bylaw, by the way the Municipal Act is written, we could not overlap or duplicate what the county forestry bylaw does anyway. So this is more of a I attempted through certain channels to see if I could contact those who had commented. I can't, so I thought the next best thing here was to make this aware publicly. Thanks.
Councillor Stewart, please.
Thank you, and through you, I just want to recognize our Chief Building Officer, especially in these reports, 7.1A, B, C, D, and E. And it's per comments. I don't want to pull them, but he's sitting over there. Excellent job. It's really a well-read report and well-written report. Thank you very much. I see that we're a little bit short. We had to get a little bit money from the transfer fees, but the transfer fee was only like 151. The reserves just under 2 million, so that's great. Looking at your individual reports and everything else, it looks like February is going to be a great month. We have basically, I think we have twice as many permits as we have, so we're looking forward to a great year. But you know, a lot of these reports just get there, but I wanted to recognize you've done a great job and thank you very much. Well done in those reports.
So we need a mover and seconder. The council approve the recommendations contained in the consent agenda dates March 27, direct staff to proceed with all necessary administrative actions. Moved by councillors Blackwell and Kavanaugh. All in favor? That's carried. Member of council, general announcements. Deputy Mayor.
Happy Easter. No other announcements.
Councillor Kavanaugh.
Thank you very much. In a similar vein, over the Easter weekend, the Ontario Provincial Police will be conducting a blitz program on making sure that everyone's wearing their seatbelts. So if you don't want to get your ticket, click your seatbelt. Thank you very much.
Councillor Kennedy, please.
Yes, just hopefully you can hear me, but sorry, any sports fans out there, Rachel Homan, curling, Team Canada, there's no better feeling than watching a Canadian team in the Olympics or any sport win and listening to our anthem at the end, like what happened on Sunday night. Kudos to her, Team Ontario, world champions. Thank you. That sound okay?
Typically Kennedy-esque, absolutely. Councillor Blackwell, please.
Thank you. Through you, I have a message from Huron Shores Hospice. Excuse me, I used to be on their board and they've asked me to share that they're getting ready for Hike for Hospice. We are really blessed to have a hospice in our home community. And so registration is now open. It's being held Saturday, May 11th. You can find all the information you might need to participate on HuronShoresHospice.ca.
Councillor Stewart.
Thank you and happy Easter. And I apologize to the whole council. I actually ran out of Easter bunnies this year for the Lions Club. We sold 1,200 and I even sold the ones for my kids too. So I'm going to have to go out to the store and buy them. Another thing I just wanted to tell you, I just got notice here that as some of you are aware, there's the Catch the Ace program going on in Kincardine. The three communities that are really enjoying it's the Legion Hospice, of course, the Lions Club. There was a winner, but she actually pulled the Ace of Hearts. And she was a winner and she got $3,700. The jackpot this year, progressive pot for next week will be well over $70,000. So it's the highest pot that we've ever seen in Kincardine. So if you want to buy your tickets, and sorry, this is a solicitation, but it's actually good community service. Feel free to buy a ticket. And I hope that one of you wins. Thank you.
Blatant, unadulterated solicitation. There's no doubt. Yeah. Councillor Prenger, please.
Thank you. I just wanted to put it out there that while everybody's doing their spring cleaning, if you happen to have any furniture or housewares you'd like to donate to a family in need, I'm currently in touch with a couple families who are desperate for some stuff right now. So please reach out.
Councillor Hinchberger, please.
Thank you through you, Mayor. Tall tree sale program opens April 2nd, I think. And thank you to staff, the community and councillors that identified that there was an issue with one of the trees being offered being invasive and how quickly we were able to remedy that. I'll use a Bruce Power lingo here that we often talk about. Shows to me as an example that we're a learning organization, which is a good thing.
Yeah, a couple of things. It's already been commented. Every faith has its sacred events, and of course, Easter is the forefront of, within Christianity. It's it's the basis of their faith. So enjoy this this Easter season with your family. Also, April is Be a Donor Month. It's the opportunity to register your consent as an organ or tissue donor. 1,400 Ontarians are waiting transplants. So it's not just, you can't do the sign your license thing anymore. You have to register online or at Service Ontario. And the most important part is to tell your family that what your wishes are, because normally when it's time to donate, you don't have that opportunity much anymore. So anyway, CAO, please.
Just two announcements, both within the community services sphere. It's the end of the ice season in Tiverton this weekend. The ice will be removed on Tuesday, so but that's a sign of spring, so yay. As well, that the dog park is going to be closed down for just a couple of days for some maintenance work. So I believe it was the 8th to the 11th, is that right? 8th to the 10th. Okay. Thank you, everybody.
All right. I need a mover and seconder that council move into closed session pursuant to section 239(2) of the Municipal Act as amended for the purpose of considering 1, closed session minutes dated March 13th. 2, a position plan, procedure, criteria, or instruction to be applied to any negotiations carried on were to be carried on by or on behalf of the municipality or local board, specifically Bruce Telecom. And 3, personal matters about an identifiable individual, including municipal or local board employees, specifically candidates for the Accessibility Advisory Committee. And further, that council return to regular open meeting upon completion. Moved by councillors Prenger and Blackwell. All in favor? It's carried. 5-minute bio break.